Hey guys, how's everybody doing? I hope everyone has had an awesome week. It is Thursday evening. I'm hoping that my lighting is going to be okay. I'm up in my office and it gets a little darker, a little bit earlier here in Vegas, and I'm doing this later than I normally do. It's a little after 5. So I'm hoping that my lighting stays okay for the duration of this video. If not, I apologize if it's getting a little dark. But anyway, I'm doing this video for you guys today. Actually, I'm doing it because of Theresa Cox, who I had on about a week and a half ago. She's actually going to be coming to Las Vegas on tomorrow night, Friday night. And she's going to be here for a few days. She's coming in for ASD Market week, which starts on Sunday. So she's going to be coming in, and she actually has a presentation that she's doing on Tuesday at ASD Market week. She's doing a presentation about going from kind of a 9-to-5 regular job to becoming a full-time seller online. She's going to be talking about like eBay and Amazon, both of which she does. Anyway, so she's wanting to highlight some other sellers, and so she asked me to give her 5 tips that I had for going full-time, because that's what I did. So I wrote her this huge novel, and went over the top with too much information like I normally do. And she was like, hey, you should do a video, and I'll put it up on my blog. She has a blog, and I'll share that information down below so you guys can go check it out. So she was like, I'll put it up on my blog and kind of, we'll coordinate it so it all kind of comes out and it's available after she does a presentation at ASD. Because most of us aren't going to be there. I'll be there watching it, but a lot of people are going to miss out. So we want to still get that information out there. So I'm going to make this video kind of going over those tips. I had 5 tips that I gave her, so I'm going to go over that. But I'm really excited that she's coming to visit. She's coming tomorrow night. We're going to go out. We're going to do some sourcing together. I'm super excited about that because Theresa doesn't thrift. She does retail arbitrage when it comes to selling stuff for Amazon. And so in Vicky, she only thrifts and she hates doing retail arbitrage. I love it. I do both. I thrift. That's probably 70% of what I do. But then another 30% is this last year, I've been really getting into going to places like Burlington Coat Factory. I do a lot of Ross, a little bit of Marshalls. So, there's a lot of stuff that you can buy retail that's been clearanced out and get some decent prices and still sell them online, especially nowadays when fashion is becoming much quicker, and the brands, they want to get out their new stuff for the season, and so they want to get their old stuff out of the way and bring in the new stuff, and so they'll send it off to places like Ross and Marshalls and TJ Maxx and Burlington Coat Factory and places like that. And they'll get clearance down, and then if they don't get bought locally, then they get clearance down even more, and that's where I come in and I try to buy stuff, get some really good prices. And Theresa does that a lot. She does it for Amazon. Her stuff that she sells on eBay is, I think she has some of that stuff cross-posted, but eBay is more about selling everything from her house. She recently moved in the last year, and she has a whole household worth of stuff to put on eBay, and that's part of what her blog is about, is selling her life on eBay. And so, but she does her retail arbitrages for Amazon, whereas I do mine for eBay. I did a little bit of Amazon FBA when I first started selling online, and I did relatively well with it, but I just don't really it's just not for me. It's not, I don't get as excited. I don't have as much fun with the process of doing the Amazon FBA where you send it in and they do it for you. I just like the process of sourcing and selling on eBay. I like the culture of eBay. I just enjoy that a lot more, so that's kind of where I've gravitated, but I still like doing some of the retail arbitrage. And I don't do wholesale or anything like that, but doing the retail arbitrage to have new items to sell to kind of supplement my used stuff that I've thrifted. So that's kind of what I've been doing. In fact, I think well, obviously I know this, but for the first time in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be going to Stussy outlet sale in California. They do these outlet sales where you can get a bunch of their stuff for really low prices, and to check it out for the first time and see if I can get some stuff to sell in my eBay store. All right. So as far as tips for becoming a full-time online seller, So what happened with me is, my background's actually in nonprofit work. The job that I had before I got into eBay, I was actually the executive director for a Habitat for Humanity affiliate in Oregon. And, I have my bachelor's degrees in sociology. I got my master's in nonprofit management, which is basically just like a business degree. It's geared towards the nonprofit sector. So that's like what my background's in. And so I was doing that, and I decided it was kind of time for me to move on from that position and, go do something different. And so I left there in November of 2016. Or sorry, no, 2015, November of 2015. And my plan was to start my own marketing consulting business. That's what I wanted to do. And so luckily I had 6 months of unemployment. And so it was kind of like, in my mind I had like 6 months, I'm going to get this business up and running and try and make it happen within 6 months time while I have like this other income to help me out. But in the meantime, while I was trying to do that, I needed to supplement my income a little more because, what you get from unemployment isn't like quite enough. It's like you get like half or, I think like 60-70% of like what your income was. And so it's not like quite enough. And so I needed to supplement my income. So I started looking at eBay, and I was selling like a few things. I bought some shoes from the Adidas outlet. And I'm like, I'm going to try selling these on eBay. And I sold a pair, and I kind of got hooked and started doing that. And so what happened is that kind of quickly I started to sell more, and I started to realize that I could get to where I was making a full-time income a lot more quickly by doing something like eBay than I could trying to make my consulting business work. And so that's how I started doing eBay. And it ended up taking me about 8 months. So there was like a couple of months where my unemployment ran out, and I still wasn't quite to where I could comfortably support myself. So it was like a real struggle for like a couple of months there. And then all of a sudden it's like we came into the fourth quarter and things started really happening. And so that was kind of my journey. So it was like, I know I didn't make that like really scary decision. I hear a lot of people saying like, I really want to go full time, but I'm scared to leave my job where I have benefits and all these other things. And I'm just not sure if I'm ready to do it yet. And, you get a lot of advice about how you should like, basically slowly build yourself up to where you're making enough income to be able to do it, or to save up, or, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. It just so happened for me, it happened, I wasn't planning for it to happen, but it just happened the way that it did. And because I had like this need to get to a full-time income by a certain period of time, I really was like ultra focused, working super hard. I wanted to make it happen, listening constantly. Within 7 months, I think I was up to 1,000 listings. And so it's like I kind of had a fire under my butt that I had to like get there. And I think I was really lucky that I had that, because I know, for like, it would be hard to like decide if you're going to leave like a job where you're comfortable, where you're making a comfortable income, even if maybe you don't like it as much, and you want to get out of there. So I get it. So anyway, so I want to get into these tips. So I got 5 tips that I gave Theresa. They aren't in any particular order. I'm sure there's other things that I could come up with. This is what I came up with for her, and so I'm just kind of gonna go over them with you. And you guys, feel free to comment and let me know what you think. If you have any questions, if you agree, if you disagree, whatever. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. Okay, so my first tip is create a schedule for yourself. It's really important. I think you're going to be a lot more successful if you have a schedule. Now, we're talking about going full time, but I think this could work, even if you're doing this for a hobby or part-time, however you want to, use these tips. I think they can be helpful, but they are geared more towards if you are trying to make it work as a full-time seller and you want to make a full-time income and support yourself or support your family. These are kind of, things that you need to be doing in order to make sure that you're successful. So create a schedule for yourself. It's really easy to kind of just do whatever you feel like doing this day, whatever you feel like doing that day. But what I found for me is that once I got myself into a schedule where I kind of had some predictability of like what I was doing from day to day, and it wasn't just whatever I felt like doing that day, I found I was a lot more productive. When I was back in Oregon, I kind of had myself, for a while, I was doing like a 3-day schedule where I was doing if I can remember, I think it was like Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday or something like that. And the way every day would start is I'd get up early, I'd get to the, you know, the Goodwill bins by 8 o'clock, which was when they opened. I'd be in there for like an hour, and then I had like different stores I'd go to on different days. So I would source on those 3 days. And then I'd come home and I had like a certain kind of rhythm of how I did it. I do things a little bit differently here. Back in Oregon, I would ship in the afternoons. I've now switched to where I ship in the mornings, which I actually prefer now. Like I used to think like, oh, I want to get stuff out so that like if somebody orders in the middle of the day, it's like, I just like to wait towards the end of the day. But I realized that caused a lot of stress of like, you get to that point and then suddenly you have to get all this work done. And it's a lot nicer, for me, is getting up in the morning, get all my shipping done. And then like that part of my day is taken care of. So there's nothing that like has to be done with the rest of my day. But I do, after I do all my shipping, I try to list every single day. I would say I list at least 6 days a week. And even if it's just a few listings, if I can do it 7 days a week, I will. And that might mean that the 7th day is just like I did 2 listings, but it doesn't always happen. But generally I do 6 days a week. And so in order to be able to list, I have to have my photos done and my measurements done. Those aren't on any specific day, but if I don't have anything to list after I'm done shipping, I got to take more pictures. And then I take a bunch of pictures and do my measurements, and then at least I can list some until I finish up for the day. So here I source, for sure I source once a week, where I go to all the savers here. We have 6 different saver stores. In some states it's Value Village, it's the same company. And then I do like 1 or 2 other days. I'll go for part of the day, and I'll do like kind of a retail arbitrage thing where I'll go to some of those other stores. We have like a bazillion Rosses. We have like 5 Burlingtons and a few Marshalls. So that's, you know, I don't have as strict a schedule here as I did back in Oregon. I'm still kind of feeling things out. I'm still trying to like find a good balance. But again, having a schedule and making sure that you're doing the things that you need to be doing helps immensely. They say that it takes like what, like 23 or 24 days of doing something for it to become a habit. And once you kind of build that habit into your work, it's almost like it bugs you if you go off that schedule or away from those habits. And that's kind of where you want to be. You want to be to where you're really driving yourselves to try to like kind of stick with the schedule for the most part. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is be your own boss. We're all working for ourselves if we're selling online. You are your own boss. So act like you are your own boss. Think about yourself as if you were your own employee. And what I mean by that is I want you to hold yourself to a standard that you would if you had an employee. So that kind of goes back to like the schedule and, you know, making sure you're getting the things done that need to be done. You know, whether it's once a week or once a month, think about the work that you're doing. What is it that you're producing? Are you listing enough? Are you sourcing too much? Are you sourcing and not listing more than a couple things a week? You know, making sure that you are putting out quality work, and think to yourself, okay, if I were my own employee, would I give myself a raise? Would I write myself up? Would I fire myself? Like really think about how it is that you're performing, and if you think it would be acceptable for someone who is working for you to perform like that. Because it matters, you know, you want to make sure that you are holding yourself to a certain standard. You don't answer to anybody else, but the only way that you're going to be successful and that you're going to see those sales come in is if you are actually doing the work and that you're finding a good balance. And so it's really important that you look at your own work that way, and be your own boss. Like, that's basically what it is. Okay, and so to go along with that, is one thing I try to like point out to people is that you need to recognize that the luxury of the flexibility that comes with the work that we do is a blessing and it's a curse. I love that I have a flexible like job. I love that you know, once I get my shipping done in the morning, if I need to do something else, if I need to do something spur of the moment, like I can. If I want to do like a weekend sourcing somewhere and kind of have fun part of the time, you know I can ship in the really super early on a Friday, and then I can get out of town And it's like I have that flexibility. I don't have to put in some sort of notice at work. So that's great. However, the curse part of it is it's really, really easy to decide that you don't feel like listing today. I'm going to do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and you're like, I'm going to do it the next day. And then the next day comes and you're like, I'm going to do it the next day. Or you might have people in your life that are like, they need help with something and they know that you work for yourself and you work at home. So they're like, hey, come do this, or hey, come help me with this. And maybe they don't really think about the fact that you have work that you need to get done, because they just assume like, well, you're flexible, you can do whatever. And the problem is when you get caught in that same trap of being flexible in your work, is that you end up missing things that need to get done. You let things slide. You leave your inventory a mess. You know, after I take my pictures and my measurements, I write down all my stuff in my notebook, and so I don't need the stuff anymore. It can be put away, like the clothes that I list. And so I will, you know, I'll put in a little stack out in the garage, and sometimes like I'll let that go for too long and it'll be really big, and then I gotta go pull stuff, and instead of it being where it's supposed to be, every day I'm finding myself going through this stack of like random crap that's like piled up, and I'm wasting my own time. And so that's one area that I need to keep myself in check. I'm really good at sourcing. I'm really good at listing. I'm good at getting my shipping out, but I'm not so good at keeping my inventory in check. And so that's one area that for me, it's like, it's easy to kind of get in the trap of like, well, my time's flexible, I can do that whenever. It's like, yeah, until you're wasting your own time and you're creating more work for yourself than you need to be. Anyway, so you need to respect your own time, and other people need to respect your time. So number 3 on my list is always be learning. Always be learning. Once you get to the point where you think you know it all, you are in trouble. I see it all the time on message boards, in Facebook groups. Somebody will say, I've been selling on eBay for 17 years. Here's the way it's supposed to be. Or I know that this is how it's supposed to work and this is what you do. And it's like, that's great. I think that everybody brings a certain level of experience. I think people who've been selling for 15 years know a lot that somebody who's only been selling for 6 months knows. But once you decide that you already know everything, you're going to stop yourself from learning new things. And you always can be learning. Always, always, always. I'm going through right now and ending some of my really old listings, because I do good till canceled. So I'm going through and ending some of my listings that are like a year old, and then doing sell similar to kind of finally get like a fresh listing on those. And so I'm like going through and I'm redoing my my titles. Some of my pictures are terrible. Some of my titles, I'm just like, why would I write that? Or I could completely miss stuff. I like relisted this jacket this last week, and it was this really cool vintage like satin kind of satin bomber jacket, and like the picture that I used for my main picture was not the picture I would use now. Luckily I was able to use the pictures I'd already taken and kind of redo my main picture. The title was like, I was missing like the best information. I was starting with the wrong keywords. And the way I had it listed, the people that would want to buy it and spend money on it weren't going to find it. And so I fixed everything, and I relisted it, and I actually increased the price, and it sold in like 4 days, and I just sold it for like $48. And that's because like I've learned so much. And so a year from now, 5 years from now, I'll probably look back at stuff that I have listed or that I've done in the past, or ways that I've done my business, and be like, I can't believe I did it like that. Like, that was so stupid, or it was so naive, or whatever. It's like, you always need to be learning, because there's always more to know. Always, always, always. So that's number 3. All right, looking at my giant list here. All right, number 4. So always be learning kind of goes into number 4, which is always be ready to adapt. Things change. So going back to that person, that seller who's been doing it for 17 years, or maybe they've been doing it the whole time with eBay. Again, the new updates come out, and then there are changes to how eBay does things, and they say, I wish we could go back to when we started, and you know, I used to make so much money on eBay. Part of the problem is that people don't want to adapt. If you have been selling, back in the 90s, you were making tons of money because you were selling Beanie Babies. Guess what? Nobody cares about them anymore. You're not making any money with them anymore. If the only thing you sell is mid-century modern household goods, like that's really, really popular right now. but in a few years, maybe it won't be. So, you know, you can't stick to doing things exactly the same way as they used to be done. You know, things sold like crazy when eBay first started because eBay was the first one doing it, because people went from not being able, like only being able to find cool stuff that they collected by going out to yard sales, to suddenly they could go on a website and they could find something and buy it from somebody across the country and nobody else was selling that thing. So people were spending ridiculous amounts of money for the stuff that they couldn't find, and it was like the Wild West of reselling online was back in, you know, the late 90s with eBay. And so you could make lots of money and you could do really well, and now there's like a million sites that do this stuff. You know, anything that you collect, you can usually find like 10 different versions of it. There's tons of reseller sites. There's people who have their own websites. There's Facebook Marketplace. There's Craigslist. Like, there's so much competition for selling stuff, so things have to be done differently. And now we have to think about, like, what exactly is it the buyers want? What are they looking for? What makes their shopping experience online more enjoyable? What's going to make them want to come back to my site, to my page, to my store, come back to eBay to buy from me, as opposed to all these other places that they can go? And so you have to be able to adapt. Things are different. Things are always going to be different. They're always going to be changing. And you, if you want to be successful, you have to accept that. And maybe you're not going to like it. That's fine. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it if you want to be successful as an online seller, that things are going to change, that technology is going to change, that the way people buy things is going to change, and you're going to have to change too if you want to keep doing it. So that is what my number 4 is. Okay, so number 5. So number 5 is actually like my main mantra that I kind of go with, that I've been saying for a while now. And it's like what I live by. And what it is remove all obstacles. This to me is one of the super important things to do when you are selling. For me, it's specifically when I'm selling on eBay. And so what it means is I want the experience for my buyers to be as simple as possible. I want as many buyers from all over the world to be able to find my stuff and buy it. And I want them to be comfortable buying it, and I want them to be happy to buy it from me. And so this means, first of all, just having a good listing. So having good pictures, including the measurements, like making it as clear as possible, like what it is exactly they're buying, making it as attractive as possible. If they're buying a jacket from me, it's not all crumpled up laying on a bed in the pictures. It's nicely displayed on a mannequin with good lighting. I'm putting the best picture first so that they see it and they think about what it's going to look like on them and they want to buy it from me. Then I want it to be, I want to have free shipping. And you know, this really depends on what it is you sell. I know that I can charge shipping if I want to. With the stuff that I sell, I'm still going to be able to make money. I've gone through phases where I have done, I have charged shipping. Obviously I charge shipping for international sales, but I recently went back to free shipping. And I think just as a general rule of thumb, especially if you are selling things that don't weigh a lot, and clothing is pretty easy, it's better just to build your shipping costs into your price, because there are some people who will filter the results on eBay by things that, you know, stuff that's offered with free shipping. And so even if it's only 10% of buyers that do that, I want that 10% to see my listings. So I've gone back to free shipping. So free shipping. And so I want to offer returns. I know there are a lot, I hear this all the time, and I am one of those people included as a buyer. I will not buy from somebody who does not offer returns. And there are a lot of people out there who will not buy from you if you do not offer returns. Can you still make money without offering returns? Of course you can. People do it. But you are closing the door. Again, if only 10% of people buying won't buy from somebody who does not take returns, then you're shutting out 10% of potential buyers, right? So you got to think about that. All these things add up. So free shipping, doing returns, and now I'm going to be doing free returns again for the same reason. If there are people who will be more likely to buy from me because I offer free returns, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to sell internationally. There are sellers who refuse to sell internationally because they're worried about just problems with shipping. Well, first of all, at the very least, you can be using a global shipping program, and that is pretty much as low risk as it gets, and at least your stuff's going to be available to some countries. Personally, I do all of my own international shipping because I know that certain countries, such as Canada, they get charged a lot more through the global shipping program, because the global shipping program automatically charges them for, you know, all the fees, all the importing fees and stuff. And I know that there's a lot of stuff depending on like the value and the weight, I think, that, you know, a lot of times they won't, if I send it to them myself, if I ship it to them, they won't get charged those fees. So overall, it's like there are a lot of Canadians who say they won't buy if you use global shipping program. So personally, I like to do my own international shipping. It's super easy now. It autofills the customs like label, so it's pretty much the same as doing like a domestic shipping yourself, except now you have to like sign it and like date it. So big deal, you just put it on there yourself. Not only do I do my own international shipping, I ship to every single country, no exceptions. I will, for some of my like higher value stuff, like over $100, sometimes depending on what country it goes to, if I know that that particular country doesn't have very reliable tracking, or they don't have tracking at all, sometimes I will pay like an extra $1 on Ship Savers to do insurance. But really, if you never do insurance and you always ship yourself, you're gonna make up for, you know, maybe like once or twice you're gonna have a problem, but you've gained like all these sales. Like I get a lot of international sales. I would say, I don't know, 15-20% of my sales go international. Maybe that's a little high, but a good amount, like every week. Not every single day, but every week I probably have at least 5-6 orders that are international. I've had a couple of problems where something hasn't, you know, they say something hasn't arrived, and like, you know, when you go to the USPS site, it just shows it kind of just being out there somewhere, like it's still in transit. But almost every time I've been able to, you know, like the UK, you can go to the Royal Mail website and you can look at your tracking. I've gone to the French Postal Office website. I've emailed them before and actually had them like respond back. So for the most part, I think I've had 2 items that went like missing, MIA, and I ended up having to like eat that cost. But honestly, the amount of money that I make on international sales far outweighs any problems. Honestly, like I couldn't even imagine not doing it. So yeah, so just basically when you make decisions about how you are going to be selling online, if you're doing it because you are scared that you're going to be scammed, because you're scared that, I don't know, you're going to be constantly having to like take returns. If you are setting up all these policies yourselves, like doing the restocking fees, which I know they're taking it away, but a lot of people had restocking fees in place because of this thing they were scared of happening, that like all these people were going to be coming out of the woodwork to like rent their clothes from them and then like send them back for free. And it's honestly like there may be like a very small number of like super high-end designer women's wear where that is like some sort of rampant problem, but all the women that I know, all the sellers that I know that sell women's clothing, like they have issues like a little bit with returns every now and then, but overall like there is not this big rental problem. And so what happens is people set up all these policies, like they don't take returns, or they do restocking fees, or they don't do international shipping, or they won't do international shipping to like these 10 countries, or, you know, you set up all these things in place because you're protecting yourself from this thing that you think is going to happen to you, even though maybe you've never even experienced it, or you experienced it once, and you're shutting the door on all these other sales you could have had. And it makes no sense. I've talked about it before in other videos. You know, if you had a brick and mortar store, you would have to deal with people stealing stuff in your store. It happens. They have shrink. They have to like put that into their bottom line. They have to have a certain amount that they budget for the year or whatever of stuff that's just going to disappear. It happens. That same thing online is so rare. Like it really is for the majority of the types of things that you guys are selling. And so having like basically across the board with everything that I do, my goal is to get as many sales as possible. My goal is to make it as easy as possible for as many buyers as possible to buy from me. And because I do that across the board, my numbers go up. They just keep going up, okay? And so that to me is what's the most important, is giving the very best customer service, making it as easy as possible, giving the best product, and making it as easy as possible for anyone that wants to buy from me to buy from me. And because I make those decisions based on success, instead of making decisions based on what I'm scared of that I don't necessarily know is actually going to happen, I'm more successful. I guarantee you that the stuff that you read in some of the groups of the bad things that happen, people want to talk about bad things that happen. People don't go on to message boards. They don't go into Facebook groups to talk about, oh, I sent out this item today and it went just fine. Or I sent out all these items last month and it went just great. They're not wasting their time talking about the stuff that happens every day, because it happens every day over and over and over and over and over again. If I had 2,000 transactions in the last year, I'm not going to talk about those 2,000 transactions that went great. I want to talk about the one that went horribly, right? And so if all you're hearing is that negative loop of the bad things that could potentially happen to you, and usually you don't get the whole story of like what happened in each of those situations, because there's probably some information that's missing. But if all you're hearing is the negative, then you start to see like this world of all these bad people jumping out to try and take advantage of you, or want to steal from you, or scam you, or they're going to send you a return and it's going to be a box of rocks, which I don't know anybody that's actually happened to. Maybe it's happened once or twice in the whole history of the millions of, you know, transactions that have happened on eBay, but when you look at it statistically, it's pretty much never happens to anyone. And it's certainly most likely not going to happen to you. So again, remove all obstacles. Make it as easy as possible for people to buy from you, and make sure that when they do, they have an awesome experience. They exactly what they thought they were going to get, and they will be happy, because overall, overwhelmingly, people just want to give you money and to get the thing that they are paying their money for, and then they will be happy. Okay? So that's what you need to focus on. All right. So those are my 5 tips. Okay. I'm going to give you a bonus one. Here is my bonus tip. Get a reselling buddy. Now, what I mean by that is, you know, obviously if you're watching this, then you're on YouTube, you're probably on Facebook, you're probably involved in some reseller groups. So you're part of a community. So you've already taken a good step towards that. But what I'm talking about is having somebody that you actually talk to regularly one-on-one. I have a few people, one of them is Theresa Cox. But I have a couple of other people that I talk to on an almost daily basis. And what that does by having a reselling buddy is that you guys can talk about, you're going to motivate each other. You can have goals together. You can send each other pictures and be like, hey, should I buy this? Should I not buy this? All those like little things. It's like, it's just, having that like positive motivation from another seller who's doing the same stuff as you. Is really great for kind of keeping yourself on track, and it's going to make you want to be better, because there's like, you know, a little bit of competition, and you see them doing well and then you want to do well. And you know, you have somebody like Theresa, who I think I said that she is an aggressive motivator is what I call it, because she will bug me and be like, you need to do this. Why aren't you doing this? You should do this today. And I can't tell you how many times I've been like, okay. I'm doing it right now. And then I'll send her back like proof, like, look, I did it. And so having somebody like that, it makes a huge difference, especially for those of us who are doing this on our own and we're alone. And, you know, it's like having that like extra level of like peer motivation is like super awesome. I'm very lucky that I'm in a relationship with someone who's also a full-time seller, Vicky. And so I get to have like that added level of kind of motivation in my own home. But it makes a huge difference to have people that you talk to regularly. Like again, I've got Theresa, I've got my friend Lorna, I've got my friend Eddie. And so all of us have like our own strengths, and we're able to like give each other like motivation and also information. And like, you know, with my friend Eddie, like he's really awesome with like streetwear and vintage streetwear and new stuff that's coming out. And he's always trying new things. And he's always like, hey, have you tried this platform or that platform? Or what do you think about this? And so he's like kind of like my go-to guy for like learning about like different brands, learning about you know, what streetwear is like really popular and what stuff is selling. And he like comes to me when he has questions like more like logistical questions and like stuff about like selling on eBay. Like if he has an issue come up, he's like, what would you do? How do you do this? Or whatever. And so we kind of like feed off of each other and give each other, we give as much as we receive. So it works out really well. So that is your bonus tip. And it's getting pretty dark over here. I feel like I've been talking really fast and putting a lot of information out there, but I hope you guys got something from this video. And again, feel free to comment below with your thoughts, your questions, if there's something that you feel like I missed, or if there's anything that you would like to hear from me about in the future. And this next week, be on the lookout because I'm gonna have some really fun videos with Theresa. She's coming in tomorrow night at like 9 o'clock, and she's really excited because there's like one Ross, I think, that's open till like 1 in the morning, and she loves the idea of being able to source after midnight. So I might do a video of us doing like our late night sourcing trip, and we'll show you kind of, you know, what we do with the retail arbitrage stuff, because some of you might be interested in trying some of that out. And I probably will do a video at ASD Market Week so you guys can see how crazy it is there. And yeah, so just stay tuned. There's gonna be a lot more stuff coming from my channel, and I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you later.